Hello YouTube, my name is Nero, TV support Call of Duty World War II. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. So here we are playing the brand new Domination 75 playlist. Now I've got to tell you guys, I'm enjoying it quite a bit. Like, I really do think that Domination 75 is much better than Domination 50, and I really think Domination 100 is much better than the other two. So I'd love to hear down there in the comments, what do you plan to vote for when Sledgehammer puts that poll up on Monday? Like, what version of Domination do you hope to see in the game going forward? I'd love to hear your thoughts and feedback down there in the comment section below. But gameplay aside, today I wanted to sit down and do something a little bit different. I want to talk about the current state of Call of Duty World War II, talk about the future of Call of Duty World War II, and give some thoughts and feelings on how the game has progressed over the course of the 5 months that's been out. The first topic of the day is going to be one that gets discussed every single year without fail. Is Call of Duty dead? I think that's especially relevant this year because a lot of the old guard in the Call of Duty community has jumped ship and moved over to Fortnite, not only because the game is incredibly fresh and fun, but because it's doing very well on both YouTube and Twitch. According to Fwiz, Fortnite recently set the record for the most gaming YouTube videos uploaded in a single month. This means that within a 30-day time frame, no other video game has ever been uploaded more to YouTube than Fortnite. Not Call of Duty, not Minecraft, not PUBG, not any other video game in the history of video games. So obviously Fortnite is a pretty popular game right now, right? Because that game is such a phenomenon and it's happening during the Call of Duty World War II life cycle, it's leading a lot of people in the Call of Duty community to say that World War II is dead, and along with it, the entire Call of Duty franchise. The thing about that is there's a big difference between individual perception and reality, right? And this isn't exactly exclusive to Call of Duty because for some reason it's in us as gamers. Whenever we get bored of a given game and we start playing something else, we assume it's the game's fault that we eventually got bored of it, and it's not our fault. We're not just moving on or growing as people, it's the game's fault somehow, right? And I've been guilty of this several times myself. Like, Hearthstone is a card game from Blizzard. Like, I know it's completely different than Call of Duty, but I fell in love with Hearthstone when it first came out, and I played it religiously. I spent an absurd amount of money on that game, but I got tired of it a very long time ago. Like, I haven't really played Hearthstone consistently in years. Like, I haven't been passionate about that game in a very long time, and it's not because the game is bad, it's because I got tired of it, right? The game still continues to be very successful and it makes them a ton of money over at Blizzard. I'm just kind of bored of it personally. It doesn't mean the game's bad, I just kind of got tired of it. And the same is true of Grand Theft Auto 5 Online. This may sound crazy to some of you because the game is still wildly popular, but I personally got bored of GTA 5 after about a month or so of heavy play. Like, when the game first came out, I was super passionate about it. I was uploading sniper montages and videos here to NerosCinema. I was using it for Dear Nero. Like, I was really passionate about GTA 5 Online, but somewhere along the way, I got tired of it. I got bored of it. I moved on, and even though I'm personally tired of the game, that doesn't mean it's dead by any stretch of the imagination. Like, it wasn't dead 3 or 4 years ago when I got tired of it. It's not dead now. It still continues to be very successful, and the same is true of Call of Duty World War II. Despite a lot of people in the Call of Duty community leaving the game to go play other things, that doesn't mean the game is dead. It still has a ton of people playing it, and it's still making a ton of money for both Sledgehammer and Activision. We know this because we can simply check out the March monthly leaderboards and see that last month 3.7 million people played the game on Xbox and another 6.3 million on PlayStation 4. That's 10 million active players on a video game that released over 5 months ago, and we all know that 5 months in today's gaming climate is basically an eternity because so many great games have released since November of last year. So Call of Duty World War II may not be a perfect game. It's definitely not for everybody, but with 10 million active players, it's far from a dead game. I think a big reason why this game continues to be successful and why it continues to have so many people playing it each and every month is because of how much stuff Sledgehammer has added to the game post-launch and how they have been handling their post-launch support. If we go back in time to some of the better Call of Duty games in the entire franchise, like in the Modern Warfare 2 and Black Ops days, Call of Duty developers never updated their games whatsoever. Like, occasionally there would be weapon balance fixes, and if there was a really big bug, then maybe they would fix it after a couple of weeks, and that's being generous. Like, back in Modern Warfare 2, it took them months to fix the care package glitch. When the original Black Ops came out, people forget this, the sound in that game just didn't work for like the first month it was out. Like, you could not hear footsteps whatsoever, Ninja was completely useless, the sound was broken at launch in the original Black Ops, and it took Treyarch about a month or so to actually fix everything, and again, that's being generous. So we didn't really have a ton of support in the Call of Duty series back in the day. It's getting much better each and every year, and here in Call of Duty World War II, I personally feel as though they have set a new standard when it comes to post-launch support in a video game. They've been able to keep their players engaged because they're giving us constant updates, they're giving us in-game events, and because of this, there's always something new to do or some reason to sign in and play, and I'm so happy they're finally doing this with the Call of Duty series because, in my opinion anyway, Call of Duty's playing catch-up to other games out there. Like, other games have had daily login rewards for a long time now. They've had daily quests or missions or what have you that Call of Duty is just now starting to catch up with, but I'm happy they're finally doing it because it's making the game more fun to me. It's easy to forget all the things they've added since November, but they've added a dozen or so new weapons to the game, most of which you can get relatively easily if you're actually playing the game. Now, I could go on for an hour talking about how they've changed up that entire system, and I'm not going to get into that here, but if you've been playing consistently and saving up your arm rate credits in between events, you can get all the new weapons pretty much immediately. They've added 2 free maps, they've added ranked play, they've added countless weapon balance updates, some new game modes, new supply drop content, they've updated health regeneration, they've changed up sprint out times, and as we learned yesterday, this coming Tuesday, they're completely redesigning the entire division system from the ground up based on community feedback. I don't think it's hyperbolic to say that this game has received more updates in 5 months than the entire Modern Warfare series has in the past decade. Now, you could argue the reason why that is because this game's broken, it's so bad, and those games were perfect, but I think if those games were to come out today, updates would have happened, right? Like, we wanted updates to happen back in the day, but they just simply wouldn't because, like I said, they didn't update their games way back when. So if Modern Warfare 2 came out today and it was a brand new game, we didn't know anything about it, there is no way One Man Army and Danger Close would be around today. Like, or Death Streaks, like, there's no way those things would fly in 2018. They would be patched out based on community feedback. The same is true of Call of Duty 4, and we saw this last year with Modern Warfare Remastered. The M16 in that game was ridiculous. Like, there's no way in 2018 they could release a gun that powerful and have it not be nerfed, but because it came out way back when and it kind of just became the norm, that's how it is. And the same is true for Frag Times 3, the same is true for Martyrdom, the same is true for Last Stand, maybe even true of Juggernaut. I know so many people hate Juggernaut, I personally love it, but regardless, a lot of changes would be made to Call of Duty 4 based on community feedback here in 2018, and a lot of changes have been made based on community feedback, because you're going to notice that a lot of the things from Call of Duty 4 and Modern Warfare 2 are not around in the Call of Duty series today, and that's because of community feedback. So just because those games weren't updated doesn't mean they were perfection or anything like that. I mean, far from it. I mean, those games had tons of problems, but like I said, developers did not update their games back in the day, and the same is true of Modern Warfare 3. Now, obviously, Modern Warfare 3 has far fewer broken mechanics than the first 2 Modern Warfare games, but lest we forget, support stealth bombers, support juggernauts, death streaks, that game was not perfect either, and again, I think changes would be made if these were all released in 2018. Just because Call of Duty World War II has received so many updates, it doesn't mean the game is bad inherently. It means the developers are listening to us and making changes when we want them, as compared to slowly phasing out things over the course of the next couple of years, which I think is a good thing, and personally, I've been loving all the post-launch support that Call of Duty World War II has been receiving, but I definitely think there are some other aspects of the game that are lacking and have been lacking for several months now. Specifically, I think one of the biggest things holding Call of Duty World War II back is the in-game reward system. I think this is actually a big contributing factor as to why so many people are leaving this game to go and play other games, and it all stems back to the fact that we're talking about a World War II themed video game here, right? We're not talking about Infinite Warfare or Advanced Warfare or Black Ops 3 or even any of the Modern Warfare games. We're talking about World War II, a setting that hasn't been explored in the Call of Duty series in nearly a decade, and the reason why is because to a lot of people, it's not exactly a fantastic setting. Now, for people like me, I adore this setting. I would say Call of Duty World War II is one of the better Call of Duty games to ever release. I'm not going to say which ones I think are better or worse, because I don't want to start a whole flame war in the comments, but I really do think that Call of Duty World War II is a fantastic game, and the reason why is I can appreciate the game for what it is and what the developers did with the World War II setting. I feel like a lot of people bought this game thinking it was going to be like Infinite Warfare, or thinking it was going to be like Black Ops 3 or Advanced Warfare, or even like Black Ops 2, when in reality the game is not going to be that. It's not going to be bright and flashy, it's not going to be super stimulating fascinating in a lot of respects. We're talking about World War II. We're talking about the 1940s. We're talking about being in the trenches covered in mud with dingy weapons, and that's exactly what we got with this game. From the very beginning, Sledgehammer said they wanted this game to be down to earth and as historically accurate as possible. Now, of course, we're talking about a video game and we're talking about Call of Duty, so it's not going to be super historically accurate, but they wanted it to be down to earth and they wanted it to be a breath of fresh air for people who were tired of advanced movement games, and I think that's exactly what we got. But it's pretty clear that for a lot of people, the bland and gritty setting of World War II got tiresome pretty quickly, and the thing is, we've seen this before. We've seen this happen in the Call of Duty franchise before because history has a tendency of repeating itself. When World at War came out in 2008, right after Call of Duty 4, a huge percentage of the player base got tired of the game and went back to play Call of Duty 4. These days, we look back at World at War with nostalgia glasses, but in reality, that game struggled to maintain its player count compared to Call of Duty 4 because for a lot of people, COD 4 was the better game. It had attack helicopters and Red Tiger camo and modern military weapons, whereas World at War had no weapon camos, it had dark and gritty maps, and of course, it only featured weapons from the 1940s. There was one full auto assault rifle in that entire game, and for a lot of people, that turned them off the game entirely. Like, it just wasn't as flashy or as wild as Call of Duty 4, so they went back to play that game, or they went back to play Halo, or wherever else was out at the time. That's not to say World at War was a bad game. I personally loved World at War. I have 40 days of playtime in that game, but it's clear that the game was not for everybody. The same was true of the original Black Ops, and I know this may sound crazy because we always look back at things with nostalgia and it tends to twist our perception of things, but a lot of people got bored of the original Black Ops a couple of months after it came out, and the reason why was because it wasn't nearly as flashy or as aggravating as Modern Warfare 2. The maps were more brown, they were more gritty, and aside from a few exceptions, the balance was pretty good. Like, the game was really balanced and competitive, and when it first came out, people heralded it as this wonderful game. Like, they were so tired of Modern Warfare 2 at the time, and when this game came out, it was like this perfect balanced game that just rewarded skill, and it was so freaking good. But after a couple of months, the same people that were saying it was the best game of all time were saying it felt boring. And the reason why I think they said it felt boring was because they were coming off a year of playing Modern Warfare 2, which was well known for its incredible highs and its terrible, terrible sinking lows. Modern Warfare 2 had a ton of flash, and it had awesome looking maps, it had awesome looking camos, it had the freaking tactical nuke and AC-130s, but it also had a ton of crazy features. Like I said, one-man army, danger close, commando, death streaks. So the game could be incredibly fun, but it could also be incredibly frustrating, and because of that, it was super engaging to play, because regardless of what you were feeling, the game had a way of evoking emotion from the people that played it, and I think that's why people enjoyed playing it so much, whereas the original Black Ops, it was much more predictable, it was much more lackluster, it was more streamlined, the highs were okay, the lows were not as bad, they were just kind of an average, meh kind of a feeling game. It didn't evoke as much emotion as a game like Modern Warfare 2. I think the same thing is happening here in Call of Duty World War II. Fans said they wanted the game to be balanced, they said they wanted the game to be boots on the ground, they wanted the game to be gritty, down to earth, and somewhat realistic, but I think a lot of those people bit off more than they can chew. So for starters, the weapons in this game are historically accurate. These are real camos that were used back in the 1940s or around that time frame. They had to stretch a little bit, but these are real weapon camos, right? And as such, they are not flashy. If I'm being honest, I don't like any of the camos in this game, aside from the ones we get later on, like bronze and gold and diamond and, of course, chrome. I think chrome, the updates to chrome are freaking fantastic, but the camos you get up until that point are really bad. I just never equipped them because I thought they looked terrible, and I think a lot of people feel the same way. So that's one of the in-game reward systems I'm talking about. Like, there's no feeling of progression, really. There's no real want or desire to get all the headshots or anything, because it's not like you're getting blue tiger camo at 75 headshots like you did back in the day. You're getting some dingy woodland looking camo or something like that. So it's not flashy whatsoever, but again, that's what fans were asking for, and that's what Sledgehammer delivered us. The maps are another example. They're all based on real life battlegrounds and real life locations. They've done a pretty good job of trying to vary up those locations quite a bit, but they're all based in reality. Like, you take a map like Point to Hawk and you compare that to any map from Infinite Warfare, there's a lot of difference there, right? The Infinite Warfare maps are going to be much flashier and much more fun, whereas the World War II maps are much more down to earth and realistic, and the same is true of these score streaks. I could go on for an hour talking about score streaks, but I feel as though they did a pretty good job of giving us interesting score streaks with the very limited technology that was available back in World War II. Like, for example, instead of just having a regular counter spy plane, they make it so the counter recon like flies around and it'll destroy other recon planes, and they'll make it so recons can't go up in the sky. The same is true for the flat guns. We have paratroopers being dropped in. The fighter pilot is so freaking fun. You control a plane that goes over the map. That's a really interesting idea, but by and large, the streaks in this game are just AoE explosives because that's what we had back in World War II. We could argue all day and night about balance, how much they cost, how powerful they are, but when it comes to the actual streaks themselves, I think they did a pretty good job because they fit well within the World War II theme. And what else would they really have? Like, that's the big thing I want to ask you guys down there in the comments. For people that don't like World War II and they say the game is boring, well, what about the game is boring besides the setting? Because to me, there's a lot of variety when it comes to the guns. Like, the guns are pretty balanced. There's a lot of variety there. The maps, I mean, of course, the game launched with 9 maps, which is inexcusable, but they've added 2 free ones since then. And of course, we have the DLC maps that are coming down the pipeline. So when it comes to the maps, like, are the maps not fun? Are they not as balanced for you? When it comes to the score streaks, how would you change them? Like, would you make them more powerful? Would you add in other ones? Because keep in mind, we are confined to 1940s technology here. We can't just add an AC-130 to the game or anything like that. We do have a chopper gunner in the form of the ball turret gunner, but there's not a whole lot they can actually do because they're confined to World War II, which, going full circle here, is exactly what we wanted. And now that we have that, it's like, well, this isn't what we wanted, but it is. It's what we wanted. And I think they did a pretty good job of doing what they could with such a limiting setting. Like World War II, it sounds weird to say it's a limited setting because we're talking about the biggest conflict in human history, but we are limited. It's 1940s technology, and if they want the game to be down to earth and somewhat realistic, this is what you get, right? I mean, there are people out there, I don't know if they don't understand what World War II was, or maybe they just don't understand what was available back in the 1940s or what have you, or maybe it's the same thing we saw back with Modern Warfare 2 and the original Black Ops. Again, Modern Warfare 2, big, flashy, beautiful game, evoked a lot of emotion, good and bad, whereas the original Black Ops was kind of the opposite of that. We're seeing something similar. We just came off 3 straight years of advanced movement and jetpacks and crazy camos and robot dogs and flying around in space and doing stuff like that, and now fans are back in the 1940s, back in World War II, in the trenches, covered in mud, dingy weapons and stuff like that. I can see why it's off-putting for some people, but I feel as though Sledgehammer Games is taking the necessary steps to try to win those players back, because slowly but surely they're going to continue to update this game to make it even better than it was before, and I'm noticing they're starting to move away a little bit from the super realistic, super gritty, super bland feel that we've had previously. We saw this with, of course, with Operation Shamrock and Awe. They add in those really cool looking camos that you can get from either the event or from supply drops. Slowly but surely the variants are starting to look a little bit better. The outfits are a bit flashier and more noticeable than before, so they're starting to ease back a little bit on the historical accuracy and the super bland feeling, which I think is going to be a good thing going forward. And of course, we have plenty more events and plenty more DLCs coming down the pipeline for Call of Duty World War II. Now, it has not been confirmed, but there's a lot of speculation that there's going to be a new event starting on Tuesday with the War Machine DLC. There's likely going to be another event with DLC 3 and DLC 4, and probably another one in the summer right before Black Ops 4 drops in October, so that's going to be a pretty big deal as well. And the best part about this game to me, and the reason why I think I enjoyed so much, is it's worth investing in, because we're not going to see another game like this for a very long time. It took them 10 years to make another World War II themed game. It's probably going to be at least 3 more years after this before we see another one, because it's a very polarizing setting. Some people really like it, some people really hate it, and they're very limited, so they're not going to be pumping these things out each and every year like they maybe did back in the day with, you know, COD 1, COD 2, COD 3, and so on, right? One of my biggest gripes with the Call of Duty series, and I know this video is super long, but hey, it's what we signed up for. One of my biggest gripes with the Call of Duty series is there's no continuity, right? There's no continuity in the Call of Duty franchise whatsoever, because everything I do in one game, that's null and void when the sequel comes out. Everything I did in Modern Warfare 2, that didn't matter in Modern Warfare 3. Everything I did in the original Black Ops, that didn't matter in Black Ops 2. Everything I did in Black Ops 3, whether that was getting Master Prestige or Dark Matter or getting supply drop weapons or what have you, you think any of that is going to matter when Black Ops 4 comes out? Of course not. That's how Call of Duty has always been. That's been one of my biggest gripes with the Call of Duty series. But this game is different, right? The reason why this game is different is because we're not going to see another World War II themed game for a very long time, which says to me, this is going to be its own separate entity for a while. You know, there's going to be Black Ops 4. There's going to be Modern Warfare 2 Remastered. There's going to be whatever Infinity Ward's working on. And then maybe Sledgehammer's game in 2020. But there will always be Call of Duty World War II. And if history is any indicator, and like I said previously, history has a tendency of repeating itself, we're likely not going to see another World War II themed game for a while. So I think this game is always going to have a thriving player base, because if any COD fans want to go and play a World War II themed COD game that was released after 2008, this is it. This is what they have. This is all you're going to have, at least for a couple more years going forward. So to me, it's worth investing the time into, because it's the only World War II themed game, and in my opinion, it's a pretty fun game. Again, they're super limited. I would make tons of changes. Don't get me wrong. I'm not here to say it's a perfect game. Like, I could do another 20-minute video talk about all the changes I would make to this game, but we're going to save that for another day probably. But rest assured, the game is not perfect, but it's a pretty good title, and that's what I wanted to talk about here in this video. I wanted to talk about Call of Duty World War II in general, talk about the Call of Duty franchise in general, and discuss where COD World War II was at launch, talk about how it got to where it is today, talk about it in its current state, and of course talk about where it may go in the future. It's a very interesting game. It's by far the most interesting story, at least in my opinion, to happen to the Call of Duty franchise in years. Like, lest we forget, Michael Condrey and Glenn Schofield left the studio partway through. They've revamped countless things about this game, and we're 5 months in. We're 5 months and a couple of days into this game's life cycle. It has been such a roller coaster, and honestly, I'm excited to see where it's going to go from here, because we still have another solid 6 months before Black Ops 4 comes out, and who knows if they're going to continue supporting this game after Black Ops 4, because if history is any indicator, they might. Again, only World War II themed COD game. They're still supporting Black Ops 3 to this day. They're still doing small events for Modern Warfare Remastered and Infinite Warfare, so maybe this game's going to get a special treatment and continue to be updated over the course of several years to come. We have no idea, and that's what's so fun about the Call of Duty franchise. But ladies and gentlemen, that's all I have for you guys here in this video. It was a super long one, but every now and then, I really like just sitting down and having a discussion with you guys. So thank you so much for listening. Please leave your thoughts and feedback down there in the comment section below, and I hope you guys all have a wonderful day.